Okay, so first of all I want to show those of you who use PHPStorm how you can upload files directly from within PHPStorm. In the past I only showed you how to use FileZilla, which is good, you know, if you use a text editor, if you use Notepad++, Text Wrangler, whatever it may be. But if you use PHPStorm anyway, you can send your files directly to the server. To do that, you go to Tools and then Deployment and then Configuration. Yeah. I'll delete this one and I'll just set it up as if I haven't set it up yet. Okay, so this is what you should see. Tools, Deployment. Yeah. You click on Configuration. I thought I got rid of it. Okay, let's try again. Delete. Okay. Tools, Deployment. Okay, so now we got a fresh system. Tools, Deployment, Configuration. Yeah. So you add a new configuration. And you could have many different configurations for many different servers, or for example for different folders in your server if you work on different projects. But at the moment you'd probably just work on this placement database. Okay, first thing is we give the whole thing a name. Yeah, I'll call mine bimserver2.com. So the name is mainly for you to identify which server configuration we are talking about. And we are using SFTP. Okay. So first thing is we need to enter the host. The host is bimserver2.com. Then you enter your username. The same as in FileZilla. You'll enter your password. Because I don't want to keep entering the password, I tick the box for saving the password. Okay, now when we log on to bimserver2.com, there will be many folders. There will also be folders outside our own user folder, but we don't really have access to it. So I'm gonna ask the system now to try to figure out what the root path is, what basically the path for my directory is. And now the system figured out my directory is in the folder home, in the subfolder me-meckle. Okay, that's already pretty good, but we can make it even better. We can basically spell out which path on the server do we want to send our files to. Because by now you'll have several folders on your area on Vim server. You might have a folder for 10 green bottles. You might have a folder for the variable tests. But this, what you're working on at the moment should go into that folder where you keep the files for your placement database. So here I'm basically spelling out where do I want to send the files to on the server. Now I've got many folders here, but you should only see one main folder, which is your username.bimserver2.com. So example, if your username is Arthur Dent, please come in. Okay. So let's say your name is Arthur Dent. So your username is adent. Then there will be a folder here called adent.bimserver2.com. So the usual rules apply. Only the files in that folder with your username.bimserver2.com will be visible on the web. And in there you might have a subfolder. For example, Lancashire Placement Limited, or whatever we called our fictitious company. So if that is the folder you want to upload your files to, you pick that folder, you click on OK. And now you can also specify what the path is on the server. But here I can see my project URL is not correct. So I'll go back to connections. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Let's see, can I log on like that? Yeah. So under SFTP host, it would work if you just enter bimserver2.com. But enter your whole domain. Yeah. In your case, your username to bimserver2.com, and that way we can test the whole thing easily. Yeah. Click on OK. And now we've got our deployment set up. Now I can click on Browse Remote Host if I want to see the files on the server, and if there's any file I want to upload, you don't have to open that, but it just means you can see the files if you want to. If I want to upload a specific file here, I right click on it, I click on deployment, I click on upload to bimserver2. Yeah, and now it uploaded the file, and I told it to go into tests, and here it is. Yeah, let's delete it to show you that it really works. I've deleted it, so let's upload the file again. Yeah, here it is. So this all works. Saves you having to switch between PHPStorm and FileZilla, and you can also configure the whole thing to work automatically. So for example, you could configure the whole system to automatically upload the files to the server every time you do a commit, or every time before you try the files out. Okay, any questions? Okay, so today you can ask me questions. Is there anything you're struggling with? If there's anything you're struggling with, then there's a good chance your classmates or some of your classmates are struggling with the same problem. So if you ask me that question, I can try to show you. I think there are quite a few different levels of skills represented here. So let me just show you something. Okay, test.php. This will be pretty straightforward for all the students who are quite advanced, but there are some of the students who are not that. Please come in. So there are quite a few students who find it all a bit complicated, And I think a few of the questions I got was, how do we link this overview of all the placements to one specific placement? And the answer is, we just attach, for example, the ID of the placement to the address. Yeah. I'll give you an example. Yeah. If I want to, can you all read it? Is it too small? It's fine, good. So I want to hand over some sort of variable. Yeah, I can just attach it. I can call it whatever I want. In our example previously it was book ID, and I can write book ID is 5. If I call this file using this line, then I can access whatever I have attached to the address. I can access it. It will be stored in $_ get, square the brackets, and in this case book ID. Yeah. So I want to print whatever the book ID is. I can just write echo $_ get book ID. Yeah, for this overview where we see all the placements and we click on one placement, this is the way to do it. You just basically generate all your entries from the database as usual, and you hand over whatever the ID is, and then at the receiving script you can access it. You don't have to echo it. It will just be stored in $_ get book ID, and you can use that then in an SQL statement. Yeah, SQL yeah. Now this can still do with improvements, this example here. Yeah. For example, if you remember, we talked about how to mask input we get, because we don't know at the moment what is contained in here. Yeah. Somebody might want to put malicious code into our program. So we talked about certain steps we've got to do, but just for those students who are struggling with some of the earlier aspects, I thought I'll talk about this again. Yeah. To make it better, then you got to mask, you got to basically clean the kind of input. You can also hand over as many variables as you want. The first one you attach with a question mark. All the following ones you attach with an ampersand. So let's say you've got a search function. And we want all the placements that are in France. Yeah. So first variable we attach with a question mark. Location is France, and all the following variables we attach with an ampersand, and salary over 10,000. Yeah. And I can attach as many variables as I want. All the subsequent variables will be attached with an ampersand again. Yeah, whatever it might be. Okay, any questions? Want to ask something? No.
How to upload the photo to FTP?
Okay, how to get the photo onto the server. We don't want to use FTP, because if we use FTP to upload the photos, we basically have to train all the users, all the users who are supposed to use the system on using FTP. We want to provide a web interface. Now I showed you how to upload a file, and what you then need to do is you need to rename the file, and you just, as long as you're happy with working with one picture per placement, we just rename the file to whatever the ID is of the placement. Yeah, and then the easiest thing is if you stick with one image format. So for argument's sake, let's say you only accept JPEG photos. So the easy way out is you rename the uploaded file to whatever the ID is, .jpeg. And in the code where you display the placement, you can then just write the HTML code for displaying an image. Yeah, and you just use the ID of the placement .jpeg. It's an easy solution. I suggest you do this easy solution first, and then if you've finished and you've got more time, you can then still think of other ways of solving the problem, for example, that allow you to display more than one image. You don't need to do this image displaying at all. You can still get a good mark without, but of course if you can do this on top of other things, you get an even better grade. Any other questions? Okay. There's something else I want to talk about. Let me just open my spreadsheet. I've nearly finished marking the previous assignment. I finished the GitHub task 10. I finished the GitHub task 12. I'm at the moment looking at the GitHub task 16. GitHub task 10, everything was okay. GitHub task 12, there were 2 pairs of students that handed in the same work. So we've got student 1 and 2 handed in the same work to me. Students 3 and 4 handed in the same work to me. That's quite low, considering that we have, do we have 65 students on the module or something like that? It's quite low, but the point here is this is not on. Officially, for something like that, there should be an unfair means hearing, and we'd have to look into where your code came from. I'll try to avoid that because it has all sorts of bad consequences for you down the line. But my important point here is all the code you give me has to be your own code. You can copy code from my handouts, that's perfectly fine. You can learn code from looking at php.net and other resources. But if I get 5 lines of code from student A and I see the same 5 lines of code from student B, that's what we call unfair means. You shouldn't do that. So you can be in big trouble for it. So make sure you submit your own code. Quick and easy. I think it's very easy to follow this instruction. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? You should all have a Viva date by now. If those of you who haven't booked a Viva date, I assigned one to you. Your chance to ask any questions? Yeah. Have you had a look at my handout? On the 3rd page, I basically spell out what you need to do to get what kind of grade. Yeah? So if you just want to pass, then you just, it's very easy. You just need a list of records from the database. We've got the code in one of our lectures. That's pretty easy. You should be able to do that in 5 or 10 minutes. But the higher the grade you want to get, the more features I want to see. And obviously, if you want a first class grade, you've got to give me most kind of features.